me know when that's gone live? I'd
It's gone
appreciate.
live now.
Oh yeah, but it says it goes live. It doesn't. YouTube delays it for some reason. Well,
Perfect.
no, it's all
Just checking YouTube now.
thanking you.
No problem. Um,
Really appreciate it.
Live. It doesn't seem to be up there in the live tab, so um, I will refresh it until it does.
It's okay. I am just so grateful to everybody coming to speak today and everybody tuning in to listen.
I'm
I
in the
just,
wrong thingy looking. I am so sorry.
hey, you're grand. I can see you here. We are live and we, oh, I can hear myself talking. That is so helpful. But thank you everybody for your patience. I am sorry for the chaos that was the beginning of that live stream. If anybody ever figures out how to start a live stream seamlessly, I would love the insider knowledge because I have not figured it out yet. But welcome. Thank you all so much for being here and coming to listen to us talk about the green paper and why we should scrap it. Um, I am so grateful on behalf of the Scrap the Green Paper Coalition to say that we have many a great speaker tonight, and we also have people who submitted their work in written format. People are going to read those out, and I hope you can join in the conversation in over on YouTube and keep the conversation going on social media because hashtag scrap the green paper. I want to see it everywhere. And while we're talking about how you can support us, our petition got to 2,500 signatures only in the last few minutes. This is amazing. It shows great opposition to the green paper, and we want to keep that momentum going. So share the petition, sign it if you haven't already. And this Thursday, outside Leinster House on the Kildare Street side, we will be protesting from 12 to 2. We're going to have some chants, we're going to have banners, some amazing speeches, and most importantly, we are going to be showing our outrage at this green paper. We are encouraging people to wear red to say stop. And we are encouraging people to wear masks and to come along and show your support to the disabled community. But I'm sure you have all heard enough from me because let's be honest, you aren't here to listen to me blabber on about the green paper. You're here to listen to some amazing activists. And so I am actually very happy to say that all of our speakers tonight are disabled. And because we all know the importance of lived experience and listening to the disabled community has to come from voices within the disabled community. So, on that note, we're going to kickstart with a submitted video from Sarah Moore. I'm going to get Gillian to screen share the video. Sarah is an amazing activist and their TikTok channel is very popular. And we are about to hear one of their TikToks. Gillian, I don't think you have your settings set for sharing audio. Sorry. Technical difficulties. I'm sure everybody is used to these now at this stage. Um, but yes, Sarah is an amazing activist. We're so lucky to know Sarah, all the work they do. Their TikTok is very popular. They talk about a lot of neurodivergent stuff, queer stuff, and it's generally fun. Sorry, Gillian, are you ready there?
No, I can't find it.
Um, if you stop sharing when
That's
you're
why. Yeah.
when you're about to share, there should be an option about including the audio.
There you go. Yeah, sorry.
You're okay.
It used to be beside the share button on this, but
Yeah, it's terrible. They're constantly updating things.
Irish government has proposed a complete overhaul of disability payments. This is extremely concerning. They are proposing a three-tiered system where the department chooses the level of support a disabled person needs. This system is very flawed because every single disabled person has different needs and those needs can fluctuate from day to day. How are you going to keep it consistent and fair? On top of that, for Tier 3, there is an obligation to engage with Intrio, and these people will have to take up employment. Forcing disabled people into work when they may not have the capacity is extremely dangerous. This will inevitably lead to higher rates of suicide like we saw in the UK when this exact thing happened. Even with the 3 tiers proposed, living off of less than €270 a week with Ireland's current cost of living is not feasible. This scheme proposes to reduce the risk of poverty and social isolation amongst disabled people, yet the average cost of living in Ireland for a single person is €800 a week. The fact that this is even being proposed is terrifying. It is not going to help with poverty and social inclusion. It is not going to help disabled people get back into the workforce. It is going to kill us. And that is not something that I say lightly.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gillian, for sharing that with us. And I think that was a nice way of introducing the topic to us. But now I would like to call on Dr. Margaret Kennedy. Margaret done the amazing petition, and honestly, treat to get to hear Margaret speak.
Thank you for having me. I can continue, can I?
Yeah.
What I want to talk to you about tonight, is what I'm going to say on Thursday. And you might notice that I'm a bit older. I'm 71, but I'm a long-time activist within the disability community. I'm extremely angry with the implications and the subliminal messages within this green paper. I will shortly present the petition to members of the Oireachtas and the 2,500 signatures, which is brilliant. And we're going to call on them to scrap the green paper. This paper, the petition is not only signed by the Irish disabled people, but a lot of overseas as well. In 2018, the government here ratified the rights of disabled people under the UN Convention. But what they didn't ratify was the optional protocol. We believe deliberately, so as to prevent disabled people from taking any action for any human rights violation. This is important in relation to the Green Paper. We are going to say that the Green Paper breaches our human rights, because by signing the UN Convention, this government pledged to collaborate with disabled people and to work from a fundamental stance of nothing against us, nothing about us without us. They also agreed, by signing the UN Convention, to work under the social model of disability. This Green Paper breaches both those agreements when they signed the UN Convention. The DPOs, individual disabled people, families of disabled people, friends of disabled people, none of us were aware of what was in the pipeline regarding the Green Paper. They faced us with a document already drafted, with a few public consultations organised, hoping it would all be done and dusted by the 15th of December. It was tokenism at its worst. This government hoped that we would not see, be given the time to look at closely. They tried to rush it through so that we did not notice. Thankfully, the disability community is strong and on the ball, and we spotted the weaknesses and the threats. We spotted and quickly the medical model of disability was used to underpin the Green Paper, going against the UN Convention of Human Rights. They decided, the government, that our bodies, our impairments and illnesses would be scrutinized by doctors or assessors, and they will decide based on their medical model whether or not we are either fit for work or have the capacity to work. And they intend to categorize people into tiers 1, 2, 3. Categorizing disabled people is inhumane, disrespectful, denies our integrity and our identity. It pigeonholes us as less than human. Using the medical model absolved this government from addressing the ableist structure of society, the marketplace and service provision, with poor transport, few PAs, increased poverty, increased cost of living, all of which prevent disabled people accessing employment. We cannot work in an ableist society without challenging the ableist barriers and the structures which prevent our access to work. The Green Paper is framed such as to imply that we are at fault, we are being lazy or unwilling, we are the malingerers who do not want to work, we are the ones who need to be the change. How dare this government present us with this Green Paper, having decimated our lives by cuts to services, degrading community supports, increasing our cost of living and poverty compared to non-disabled people. This government has negated our ability to live equally with all other citizens in Ireland. How dare they scrutinise our bodies without first scrutinising the ableist and discriminatory environment and society in which we are expected to live. A completely ableist Green Paper from a completely ableist government. We're not fools. We read and we see the implications of the documents. We reject the medical model and the underpinning of any legislation which is framed in a medical model. We're rejecting the medical model, therefore the legislation. We will hold fast to the rights of the UN Convention and the social model. We refuse to be documented and tiered, which is reminiscent of the 1930s before World War II. In fact, we are seeing more and more legislation that's similar to an ideology of pre-World War II. Old disabled people, our community, being forced into nursing homes from hospital. Young disabled people incarcerated in nursing homes. Disabled people being threatened about their benefits if they do not go for training or jobs. We are seen as the problem. We will reject any attempt to sneak in legislation without full cooperation of the disability movement. Full engagement with DPOs, young disabled people, parents of disabled people and ill people. Full engagement, not just tokenistic gestures. And because this government decided to bulldoze us into agreeing this Green Paper, we will reject all new legislation until we have the OP optional protocol ratified. We demand that the full protection of the UN Convention of Human Rights for Disabled People, which includes access to rights via the optional protocol. If the government of this country wants disabled people to be collaborators, they need urgently to ratify the optional protocol so that we have the legislation to safeguard and uphold our rights. Meanwhile, we are saying powerfully, without reservation, a resounding no to this Green Paper. We are saying scrap this Green Paper now. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Margaret. It's always a pleasure to listen to you speak. You're always so impassionate, and we're very grateful. Loads of claps and good points, and thank you for amazing speeches. Loads of comments rolling in, thanking you. Thank you so much, Margaret.
Thank you very much. I feel that we have to have the optional protocol because that's our safety. And if this legislation is coming, and if more and more legislation coming, and we've no safety, then the option protocol has to be ratified. Thank you very much for the platform. See you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday.
You bet.
And next, I would like to call on Róisín Hackett.
Hello, that was a brilliant speech, Margaret. Congratulations. So I won't be able to come on Thursday because I'm working actually. So I'm here to speak on behalf of myself, but just to let people know, I am also a member of Disabled Women Ireland, and I work at Arts and Disability Ireland. And this is a really big deal for us at Arts and Disability Ireland because it affects artists hugely, almost more than other, because of the dependence upon disability allowance and other payments. So I'm sure Tara Carroll from Chronic Collective will talk more about that later. So this is just a working document of a kind of submission. So it's nothing, it might be a bit of a mess when I read it, but here goes. Okay, so I disagree with this reform, and here are some of the reasons why. The disability allowance should at least be the same as the pandemic unemployment payment of €350 per week. Because if you think that what non-disabled people need to live, then that's what disabled people need, regardless of a three-tiered system. Now that I pay tax, I would pay even more tax to see that happen. It was discriminatory to pay non-disabled people a certain amount during COVID and disabled people another lower amount. Disabled people have even more overheads to pay for than non-disabled people. We have responsibilities like rent, mortgages, car insurance, bills, children, elderly parents, etc. We are carers just as much as we are cared for. Assessing support needs. How would the government assess these support needs? My own parents sometimes don't even know what I can and can't do, and they've known me extremely well for 33 years. So how is someone in an office going to assess me? My dad, for example, understanding next to nothing about the impact of my dyspraxia, and has gotten angry with me a couple of times because of it previously. I know myself, and we all know ourselves far better than our parents do, or far better than the government does, or anyone in an office. Dyspraxia is a neurodiverse learning disability. Would people in the office know about dyspraxia and other such neurodiverse disabilities, learning disabilities, invisible disabilities? Would they know about every single chronic illness, every single disability? What would their qualifications be? A psychologist, an occupational, or physiotherapist? Additionally, disabilities cannot be divided into mild, moderate, and severe so clearly because our disabilities are in constant flux. You can have weeks of pain and fatigue, and then you're fine suddenly. You can have good days and bad days. You can be in hospital or on the couch living in your parents' house 1 year, and the next year you could be working a 9-to-5 job or have a relationship and kids and a social life, and you could travel all around the world. Your life as a disabled person is far more precarious and uncertain than other non-disabled people's lives. I know this from being diagnosed with epilepsy and how that affected my life and the times I ended up in hospital and how since then I've had to change my lifestyle. Regardless of its mildness or severity, once you have one disability, you are likely to be diagnosed with more or develop other ones or develop a chronic illness. I have had to be far more careful and considered in how I live my life and plan ahead and be more mature than my peers always. So how do you assess that? That's what I'd like to ask the government. And you only need to look at the recent past with the UK's personal independence payment, which was mentioned earlier, to see how badly that went and is still going. There was an investigation by the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities I think because they have the optional protocol, but we don't have that. And this green paper mostly breaks all of the UN Convention, but it breaks specifically Article 27. If anyone wants to look it up, it's the one about work and employment. Next, despite the fact that I have a job now and I have had many part-time jobs in the past, it's very, very difficult to get a job even when you have a mild disability. I cannot work in the retail or service sector because I cannot use my right hand and I have extremely poor balance. I can't physically pull a pint, carry a tray with lots of dishes, carry a pile of pint glasses, move around crates of stocks in shops, or fold clothes or towels in a proper professional way. In general, I can't do tasks very quickly or even carry anything heavy. On top of that, even if I get a job interview, when I do, people notice I have a disability and I have been rejected because of this, even if they can't legally explicitly say so. Finally, because I haven't always worked, my CV is patchy in places and I wouldn't be considered for that reason. Workplaces do not like making reasonable accommodations for their workers, regardless of how much they legally should. So even when you've a mild disability, you cannot just go out and get a job. Nothing is that simple because we live in an unequal world, full with discrimination. The three-tiered system is also very divisive in general. It is designed to divide the disability community further, to isolate people further. This will benefit the government because the community will be less likely to come together and to work for change and equality in a united way if we're all divided into three different types of disability in this way. In TRIO and government employment schemes, it would be great to have easier access to these services, to CE schemes or solace courses and in-TRIO officers, but nobody should be obliged to do it like they would be if they were tier 3. If someone is in tier 3, they should never be obliged. Because again, if you have a disability, it can fluctuate. 1 week you are fine, the next you are not. And then my other question would be, if these services and intro offices are there, will they be accessible? They need to be accessible to everyone, including Zoom calls or phone calls or ISL interpretation, or being able to bring a personal assistant, parents or partners with you. And then you also have to consider the cost of getting to these intro offices and how if people are on disability allowance, that might be very difficult. You need to remember that people with disabilities can live in the countryside and have little to no access to public transport. And most disabled people don't drive, thanks to the defunding of the Irish Wheelchair Association and discrimination by society, including parents of people with disabilities not wanting them to drive, or because they're blind or visually impaired, or in fact actually have epilepsy for the 1 year after you have had your last seizure. So getting to an intro office or solace centre might be impossible. Some disabled people live very isolated lives, and I think this is something that the government hasn't really taken into account with this green paper. Then there's just a couple of more things. So in terms of self-employment and artists with disabilities, there is no mention of supports for self-employed people with disabilities or people who want to be self-employed as artists or otherwise, or employers who have disabilities. It's as if self-employed or employers with disabilities don't really exist. We're all employees. And this again goes against the Article 27 of the UNCRPD. And then finally, the fact that there's no mention of what would happen if you were to marry or to cohabit with somebody. Because again, the government doesn't realize that people have relationships and sex lives and children and want to have families. And they just assume we all live with our parents or siblings. And like people are kind of discriminated against if they cohabit or get married. So a lot of people hide it from disability allowance section. Okay, that's kind of all I have to say. Thank you very much.
thank you very much. I think you've given us all a lot to think about, and I know hopefully other people that would not have necessarily thought of these things. So several thank you messages and hand clapping emojis, whatever they're called. But so thank you so much, Róisín. And next we have, it ties in perfectly, we have Tara from the Chronic Collective on next.
You see me? Hello?
Hi. I currently can't, but that doesn't mean other people can't.
Oh, there you go. It started. It
Oh, her
started.
hair is fabulous.
Hi, hello. Hi, I'm Tara Carroll. I'm a disabled artist and accessibility consultant, and I also run Chronic Collective with Anya O'Hara, which is we're a collective that supports disabled artists and programming and disabled audiences. So hello. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Róisín. That was a really great written piece that you wrote, and hit on pretty much everything I think we can all collectively say we agree with. So I don't have anything like really prepared. I'm just wanted to talk to my position as a disabled artist and all the disabled artists that I support through the work I do. So one, yeah, I'm a disabled artist myself on disability allowance. So to hear of this green paper is very, very worrying. And to be with just experience of also being on job seekers for many times in my lifetime. And the harassment and the push from Intro to do certain courses and to do certain work was so stressful. And even when I had a part-time job, I couldn't find a full-time job because I wasn't well, that I was harassed a lot about, even when I had a job, they were still giving out to me if I missed an appointment, and they would threaten me that they would threaten me to cut me off my supplementary job seekers. So that was a lot. So I can only imagine what it would be like now on disability allowance, and then if this green paper does come true, what that actually would look like, and how detrimental that's going to be. So in terms of a disabled artist, artists are already working in a very precarious industry. We are already fighting against a lot, let alone if you're a disabled artist, because we are self-employed. We work, our pay is far less than other industries. We don't get contracts as much, so then even our access needs won't be respected. So you can lose money easily. So for example, I just came out of like a 2-week period of being bedbound, which happens every like 6 weeks. And when that happens, it means I can't work at all. And to reschedule work, some people can be kind, and other people, even though they want you as a disabled artist and they want your work, they don't necessarily want to tend to your needs and don't want to be flexible. So I often lose money a lot and lose work a lot. So I'm very dependent on my disability allowance to come in. One thing which I think has come up with Margaret and Róisín as well, and it is also the fact that like this green paper is against the Department of Social Protection's own research. They have done research from INDECON, the Indicon, that says that disability costs is 9,000 to 12,000 a year, despite whatever disability you have, it still costs to have a disability. So we're already working in a minus. So as artists, we already have so much unpaid labor, and as disabled artists, we're always teaching other people how to work with us and how to be more accessible, and that's also a lot of free labor involved. So last Wednesday, I know Mariam was there, and that's kind of why I've been invited to talk, but there was a meeting last Wednesday with the Arts Council and other organisations, and it was called Artists with Disabilities, Rights, Works and Welfare. So they're doing research at the moment with I think his name is Philip or something. He's a doctorate from doing a PhD in Maynooth, and his PhD is on social welfare supports and disabled artists. So he has been working with 35 artists, disabled artists, and talking about their experiences of being on welfare and the struggles of working. So they do have some research there. Now, it's not like the greatest, I'm not going to lie. It's not talks to intersectionality at all. It avoids intersectionality of other marginalized communities completely, which I think often happens with the Arts Council and ADI and all these places. I don't think it's either you're just a disabled artist, they don't also talk about intersectionality within that, and how for even a Black disabled artist that's going to be, or a trans disabled artist, it's going to be a lot harder to obtain job opportunities. So that's kind of worrying as well, that that's not being talked about. Their stance from the meeting is that they all equally want to scrap the green paper. I was kind of worried that they were going to talk to that they would want like a compromise, but they actually wanted to be completely scrapped. So that was really great to hear. So I think we can work closely with Arts Council to also come up with a submission, because that's what I was trying to focalize with them, is that how are you going to use this research to put pressure on or Department of Social Protection to change policies and to also scrap the green paper. So I know it's good that we now have till March, but I think we really need to put the head down in terms of getting this scrapped. A big kind of like stat that I found during the week was Social Justice Ireland. They had done research in last December 2022, and says that Ireland is the lowest employment rate in the EU of disabled people. So our current rate is 26.2% of disabled people in Ireland is employed. In comparison to the EU, which is 48.1 in other countries. So we're already up against so much, and if this three-tier system comes in and they want us to search for work, that's going to be pretty impossible. It's already so hard to find work as an artist, to find work and then supplement that work and not have the capacity to do other jobs, like Róisín was saying, in terms of like, I used to work hospitality for 12 years. I could not do a hospitality job anymore. Like I would be fired so quickly because I am constantly bedbound every few weeks, and even the simple thing of like all of our medical appointments are during the day. So to then, like, you'd be also losing time. You will also be asking for time off during that, and like how would that be respected, and things like that. So I think it's just getting really, really worrisome. I really do hope that the Arts Council, because it was really hard. I know Mariam was there, and the YouTube from that meeting is available to watch back on. I actually had a bit of a breakdown while I was speaking, because it was really, really hard to hear a lot of able-bodied people in the room, and then arts. There was disabled people in the room, but they were mainly from arts organizations. There was very little disabled artists there, and again, it's people talking about a topic that's about a person, about disabled artists, but then not having enough disabled artists in the room, and lack of diversity was insane in that room. There, Mariam was one of the only people of color in that room. There's no one else. There's no trans people. There's no queer people. Like it was just really, really bad. So I'm kind of very worrisome and wary of where that will go as well, and how they're going to actually support disabled artists through this, and how are they really going to back us up in terms of scrap the paper? How urgent are they going to respond to this as well? Because March will quickly come around, and I think things need to be put in place. And then in terms of Chronic Collective, we work with disabled artists, and constantly we have to pay disabled artists cash in hand and in other ways, because it's already so restrictive of how you can work on disability supports. And like I know you technically can work on disability supports, but then to now like go back on this now, instead of creating like positive change within disability supports and supporting more disabled people in working and having more insecurity, they're actually going to force it in the total different direction. And it's very evident that it's going to be it's going to actually undo all the work that the Arts Council, arts organizations and the industry have done because we are getting a bit more accessible for disabled artists currently in the last like 2 years or so, but still a lot of work to do. But this green paper will dramatically will reduce the amount of disabled people who will be able to work in the industry. And yeah, that's I guess all I can think of right now. Sorry, I didn't have anything prepared, but I just wanted to put my position in. I want to carve out time to really work on submissions or things that we can do to get this paper scrapped. So I am here for the fight. I'm going to change work to be there for the protest on Thursday. I've been trying to get CAT2 involved. If you know, CAT2 is the housing union that has unions all over Ireland. And I was trying to show to them that if this green paper comes true, that there will be a lot of disabled people who will be in worse housing security than before, and that they should be jumping on this too. So hopefully we could have at least we hopefully will have the support of CAT2 as well to spread the word to their members as well. Yeah, that's kind of it. Sorry, it was a little bit rambly, but
No, we love a good ramble. Thank you so much, Tara. I think for those of us who are involved in the art world, we're so invested in it, but other people have no idea what it's like. So I think it's such an important perspective to hear, because it might shock people to know disabled artists exist.
Exactly, yeah. And we're also very wanted right now, which is so interesting that like disabled artists, there has been more pathways carved out in the arts industry currently. It is still very tokenized, I'm not gonna lie, but there is work there, but it's very tokenized. But that's going to be all undone with the green paper. We will see far less people able to say yes to opportunities to show their work as disabled artists. We're already a very hidden community. We're already a very forgotten about community, and we are not catered to at all. So to then fight against all this on top of it is going to be a really, really tough one. So yeah.
Perfect, thank you. loads of comments thanking you for how articulate you were and sharing your experiences, all that jazz. Look forward to seeing you and everybody on Thursday. But next I'm gonna call on Gillian. Gillian is actually going to be reading out a piece by Aimee Godfrey.
Yep, thank you very much, Keir. I'm going to be reading this out on behalf of Aimee. So I hope I do their words justice. I'm going to read it in the first person because that's the way that it was sent in, just so you know. So I was born with cerebral palsy and hydrocephalus, meaning I have never known what it's like not to be disabled. My hydrocephalus also means that I've lived with a shunt in my brain and all the associated fear and panic that comes with the possibilities of complications for my entire life. And after 5 brain surgeries, with an untold number of them lying ahead of me, these complications are a real and constant threat to my quality of life, and in fact my life as a whole. The nature of my disability is one such that I will never recover or get better from. In fact, it has and will make life harder for me as I age. Unfortunately, brain damage doesn't just go away because the government decides it suits them. The irony is not lost to me that my disability means I can't, nor have I ever been able to, attend an in-person protest for my own rights and the rights of others, given that I am entirely reliant on the goodwill of others to be able to leave my house at all. Another irony that would make me laugh if it wasn't so objectively terrifying is that all of this baying for reform comes at the same time that the government has, by its own admission, paid €1.5 million for public service ads to try and convince us that they believe that disability rights are human rights. It is funny then that they have not yet ratified the optical protocol in the UN Convention on that area, which means we as disabled people have no legal right to pursue them. At 24 years of age, there is nothing that I am able to do without some degree of assistance or supervision. And yet, with the government's proposal of this green paper, they have decided that assessors appointed by the Department of Social Protection will be entirely and uniquely qualified to decide that I am fit for work and will be forced to engage with what the green paper deems reasonable and appropriate as decided by them. I have not been able to take a deep breath, never mind a full night of sleep, since this plan was announced. I am well used to having no choice but to consent to dehumanisation at the will of the government. And yet it still devastates me to have to beg them to stop this, to look into their hearts and see this for the unjust, malicious and downright evil thing that it is. And I just wanted to say thank you to Aimee for sending that in and for sharing such a powerful statement.
Thank you, Gillian, and thank you, Aimee, for sending that in. I am very grateful to all of our speakers, but I'm also really grateful that people took the time to make submissions in a way that was most accessible for them, whether that was pre-recording, whether that was writing, whether that was talking with no prepared speech. I am glad to see everybody doing what, because that's what we want. We want this to be as accessible as possible. And moving on for that, representing an organization that's all about trying to make things accessible. I'd like to call on Kayleigh to talk on behalf of Access for All.
Hi, my name is Kayleigh, as I was just and I'm gonna speak on how I feel like if I was forced to work, I don't know how that would impact my life, because I need a lot of physical support, because with my cerebral palsy, I don't really have use of my left arm, and I need some help with basic care needs. So I don't know how the work, me being in the workforce would benefit me or society. But I do believe if the government wanted people like me to work, they would have to give me PAs to help me to be a productive member of the workforce, and at the moment I can't even get them to give me an adequate care package at home, so I don't know how they'd fulfill PA to come and help me work in the workforce. So I'd be very worried. And yeah, I don't know why they always come after the most vulnerable people in society. So yeah, I'm sorry if I'm not speaking as well, but I'm trying to get my point across. So I just think they need to no one person's disability is the same. And I think, as people have said, your disability can change throughout time. It doesn't stay consistently the same. Like, as you get older, you can get weaker and you can need more support, and I don't think the government are factoring that in. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button there. Thank you so much, Kayleigh.
Yeah, sorry if I didn't speak too good. I get a bit nervous.
You're fine. And this one, anyway, people are willing to speak is perfectly fine by us. And everybody's saying you spoke perfectly in the comments. So
yeah, thank you for allowing me to have my say.
Of course, thank you. And next we have Daniella on behalf of Neuro Pride Ireland. Daniella is the one responsible for all the amazing graphics you would have all been seeing on the thingamabob, the social medias. All those lovely graphics are we call them scraps, that character. I love them so much. And with the lovely mask and the ear defenders and the wheelchair, love it. Danielle, before I throw it over to you, I will say just in terms of a comment that came in, yes, we have put out a post today asking everybody that can if they would mask up on the day to help make sure that space is as safe as possible for all of those all of those that need that added layer of safety. So yes, we will have masks available on the day, but we do also ask that everybody that can mask up. A post went out about that today, and tomorrow there'll be even more posts going out as well as in our subscribers email if any of you are subscribed. All of which links will be in the comments. So sorry, Daniella.
Oh, thank you so much, Kier. And yes, very much mask up for Thursday, because we need everyone to be able to go, and the more people who can go, the better. So yeah, hi, I'm Daniella, and I'm also a disabled artist speaking on behalf of Neuro Pride Ireland tonight. I went to the Dublin Castle consultation on this green paper and came away with a broken wheelchair from the cobblestones, and a sense of just how overwhelmingly ignored disabled people are by our government. The Oireachtas Disability Matters Committee has heard evidence of what disabled people need from the system, and the government ignored it. The government has read the Indicon Cost of Disability report and come to the conclusion that they will not be solving the crisis set forth in it, but instead making it the problem of individual disabled people to meet our own needs. The government and its officials hear disabled people speak of a world not made for us, a world that is cruel to us, a world that says we don't belong in it, and it responds that we need to make more of an effort to fit into it. The Green Paper's authors admitted under questioning that only 4 out of every 25 cases would make it into Tier 1, a category protected from the pressure of having to find work in order to save off poverty. Tier 1's rate of payment would hardly be enough for most people to live on, but those on Tier 2 and Tier 3 wouldn't even get this. They'd be pressured, and in the case of Tier 3, obligated to engage with Intrio with the hopes of moving them to supporting themselves to work alone. Many disabled people will avoid doctors, even in serious medical emergencies, and this is especially true for neurodivergent people. A study by Dr. Mary Doherty and colleagues found that for autistic people, going to the doctor is not a trivial matter, and some won't even go when their lives are in danger. The sensory overload, the unpredictability, communication difficulties, having to mask as in like, the autistic masking, not knowing what to expect, being disbelieved, self-doubt, and more lead to us not engaging with medical professionals or being misunderstood by medical professionals. And yet these same medical professionals are supposed to be able to report on our level of disability in order to sort us into these new tiers. We know from our community that this is true for so many neurodivergent people. It's hard enough for anyone, let alone any neurodivergent person, to get all the medical documentation needed for the current disability payment system. To expect us to now regularly go through this process for reassessment and hope we can convince our specialists to spend time writing reports that properly document how disabling our conditions are to us is inhuman. The medical system has traumatized such a large number of us, we cannot bear the thoughts of doing it all again even once. And the government is right that there are a low number of disabled people in work in this country compared to other countries. That part's definitely true, as I think Tara was saying earlier. But it isn't because of some failing on the part of disabled people. The world is inaccessible to us, and having to face that world while fearing that your payments might be at risk if you suggest that you are fit for work means that we are kept from employment. If our payments weren't means tested, if our payments were unconditional and guaranteed as a basic income support to cover the cost of being disabled, perhaps trying to find work would be something more disabled people would want to do. But the truth is, many employers don't want to hire us to make accommodations or to make their premises accessible. In a UK study, half of people would not employ neurodivergent people. Additionally, 3 in 20 respondents in a survey in the UK faced dismissal, disciplinary action, or demotion after disclosing a mental health issue at work. That's of course if the door to the business is wide enough for your mobility equipment in the first place. And what about working from home over the internet? A study published in the past few weeks from Inclusion and Accessibility Labs found 73% of the websites of Ireland's top 100 companies are inaccessible, while 95% of education institutions have inaccessible websites. And given the disproportionate number of neurodivergent people who are trans, it's worth noting that 55% of trans folk indicated they had experienced or witnessed transphobic bullying in the workplace. Anyone who's multiply marginalized is at risk of traumatization and re-traumatization. Instead of tackling the fact that public life is made deeply inaccessible for disabled people, the government is pushing an agenda which does not consider our needs and doing so in a manner which is traumatizing our communities. They must put an end to this process by telling us they do not plan to go ahead with the Green Paper's proposals. They absolutely must scrap the Green Paper. Thanks.
Nope, wrong button. Thank you, Daniella. Really appreciate it. Great points, if I say so myself. And then next we have Gillian reading a piece submitted by Kerry Mills.
Thanks, Keir. Again, I'm going to be reading this in the first person because that's the way it was sent in. My thoughts on the Green Paper by Kerry Mills. I'm a 20-year-old physically and neurologically disabled person. I'm unable to work full-time and likely always will be. My partner is in a similar position. Currently, I'm on the disability allowance and my partner has been trying to get the disability allowance since July. We've been trying to build a life together, but this has been difficult due to ableism and lack of accessibility. I am diagnosed autistic, but have ADHD, anxiety, PTSD, Raynaud syndrome, fibromyalgia, and chronic fatigue. It's suspected that there are other health conditions going on as well. I find it incredibly difficult to juggle all of my disabilities at once. I don't have anywhere near the amount of energy that the average person has, and this stops me from accessing education or working full time. If the Green Paper goes through, I will likely lose my income, and I don't know if I could even get a part-time work. I don't drive, and I live in a small town. I've gotten a lot less anxious about public transport, but I couldn't walk from a bus stop or a train station to and from work unless I worked extremely close to the bus or train. When I have a Raynaud's flare-up, it can last for hours. This is painful, can cause sensory overload, and with particularly bad flares, I lose the ability to use my hand. In the winter, this is intensified. There is also the issue of finding work that's accessible for me. I can't stand or walk for long periods of time without causing fibro flare-ups. Most places are not accessible for my sensory needs because of the bright lights and an overwhelming amount of sounds. Working in a multiple-story building wouldn't be possible if there wasn't a lift. I want to have the opportunity to move in with my partner, have children, own a home, and just have a fulfilling life. If the Green Paper bill goes through, I will lose any hope of that. And Kerry's given a trigger warning. I have struggled a lot with my mental health. When I have been forced into inaccessible environments, my mental health has gotten a lot worse. I spent a lot of my teen years being suicidal, and I attempted suicide when I was 11 and 15. My experiences are not rare. So many neurodivergent people have similar experiences. The suicide rate will likely go up if the Green Paper goes through, and I'm scared that I will be one of those people. The Green Paper will put disabled people at even greater risk compared to where we already are. People will be in poverty and their health will be at risk. Disabled transgender people, like myself, won't be able to afford the trans healthcare they need. Opportunities that we deserve will be taken from us. It is vital that the Green Paper bill does not go through for the safety and well-being of the disabled community. And I just want to say thank you to Kerry for sharing, sharing very deep and personal stuff in order to highlight, I suppose, the very real risks and the very real fears that people have around this Green Paper. So I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Gillian, and thank you, Kerry. And Gillian, if I ask you to do another thing, will you screen share Kate Ann's video, please? And while Gillian is getting that set up, please make sure to press the button to share audio. Thank you everybody for watching over on YouTube. Really appreciate it and really appreciate everybody who's been sharing about the campaign, sharing their own stories with the hashtag Scrap the Green Paper. It is so important that we keep this momentum going, and hopefully they will realize that this in its current state is not acceptable to any of us. But I will pass you over to Kate Ann virtually.
My name is Kate Ann, and I wish to outline my main concerns on the Green Paper and why I feel it's not fit for purpose. Number 1, the effect it has already had on people's mental health, and the fear and distress that it has spread through our community. I feel the department gave no consideration to how the disabled community would feel. In the Green Paper, it stated that Tiers 2 and 3 would be expected to engage with Neuro and take up employment. Now, Minister Humphreys has said that engagement with Neuro would be voluntary across all 3 levels. My concern is, will Minister Humphreys go back on this at a later date? One of my biggest concerns since I first read the Green Paper is employers. Realistically, many employers won't employ disabled people, so how will they tackle this? I know many disabled people who have spent years looking for employment and have had no success. The money that has been spent on the Green Paper could have been used to train employers, to educate employers, and help disabled people find the employment that they want. Number 4, after attending the public consultation alone, I still do not understand how disabled people will be put into 3 tiers. Having 3 tiers is oversimplifying what it means to be disabled. Personally, life can be different for me on a daily basis. Some days I might have to spend hours in bed and not have the energy to do anything. But what employer would understand this? Number 5, and the last point I want to touch on, is the fact that there was no disabled people involved in the process of creating the Green Paper. There should never be anything without us. Thank you, and I want to congratulate everyone in our community on their efforts so far.
Amazing. Thank you so much to Kate Ann, not so typical Kate, on socials, for sharing with us their thoughts on the matter. And as much as I was saying you will get fed up with my face, I'm sure you'll get fed up with their face more. Gillian, I'd like to call on you next, to talk as yourself. But you might want to unmute yourself first.
That's fair enough. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm actually going to be talking on behalf of Disabled Women Ireland. I'm the board secretary for Disabled Women Ireland, as well as being one of the co-founders of Neuro, but today I'm here as Disabled Women Ireland. We are part of the Scrap the Coalition, Scrap the Green Paper Coalition, that's Scrap the Coalition. And as a group, Disabled Women Ireland we're extremely disappointed, upset, annoyed when we first saw this Green Paper and first saw the proposals contained within it. For the vast number of years, Disabled Women Ireland, along with other DPOs, but Disabled Women Ireland have been presenting to the Disability Matters Committee, the Oireachtas, which, if people don't know, is a committee that is looking at Ireland's obligations under the UN CRPD that was mentioned earlier, and whether Ireland is fulfilling its obligations, whether our legislation is, they've been scrutinising our legislation and our pretty much everything to see if we are fulfilling our obligations, and they've been asking DPOs and disabled people and service providers our views. And Disabled Women Ireland have been very consistent about what we need and what we want and what we need from the government in order to support disabled people to live fulfilled lives and to have the standard of living that seems to be acceptable for everybody else apart from disabled people. And yet when we read through this Green Paper, there was none of that there. We've called on the government to scrap means testing of disability payments. We've called on the government to bring in a universal basic living wage. We have called on the government to introduce a cost of disability payment in light of the Indicon report, in light of the acknowledgement that it is more costly to be a disabled person than it is not, in light of the fact that Ireland is ranked one of the worst places in the whole of Europe to be a disabled person, in light of, as Tara mentioned, and other people have mentioned, the high unemployment rates and everything. And almost insultingly, the government has used the fact that we have this high cost of disability as a justification for what they've outlined in this Green Paper. They have acknowledged that it is more costly to be up to 12,000, 13,000 for people with intellectual disability, more expensive to be a disabled person in Ireland per year. And their solution to this is to go, well, let's get them into the workforce then. Let's make sure that they're not burdens. Let's make sure that they are, part of the workforce. That'll sort all of that out. And they keep on telling us that, this isn't about cutting costs, because it's actually going to cost us more money to do, while not saying the reason it'll cost more money is because they have to pay for the assessments and pay for all of that. Means testing is far more expensive. And also not acknowledging the fact that the proposed tiers and the payments for the proposed tiers do not in any way address that cost of disability. Even on the highest tier, the money that, the payment that people will get will still leave them considerably less well off than, a non-disabled person. And they will still have that cost of disability. That hasn't disappeared. It hasn't gone away. And it still isn't covered. And as I think I'm not sure, sorry, to be honest, I'm not sure who mentioned it. I think it might have been Róisín. During COVID, we were told that the absolute minimum that people needed to survive was €350. To have a proper life, that was €350. And yet, the highest payment that somebody will get on this disability payment is significantly lower than that. It's significantly lower. And this just ties in again with that idea that disabled people should be happy with just coping, that we shouldn't want to thrive, we shouldn't have hopes and aspirations. We should just be happy with coping, just having barely enough money to scrape by. And in fact, it's not enough money to scrape by, because, as I said, they haven't even addressed that cost of disability, the cost of mobility equipment, the cost of access equipment, the cost of extra medical appointments. And I wanted to talk about a different government paper, because I think this kind of shows you where this idea for the green paper comes from. So this is from so I'm going to read it out because it's too much information for me to remember off the top of my head. This is from the Disability Capacity Review to 2032. So this is a report that was published by the Department of Health in 2021, just directly after COVID, just so so people understand this. The number of adults requiring these services is expected to be around 5% higher in 2022, 10% higher in 2027, and 17% higher in 2032 compared to their 2018 level. Fastest growth will be for young adults, up by a third, and over 55s, up by a quarter. Relative to a baseline of 2018, spending in 2032 would need to be between 250 million and 450 million higher to meet demographic need. So they know that there is going to be an increasing amount of people needing to avail of disability payments from the Department of Health, from this report. So what do? They decide they'll introduce a new tiering system where 50%, this is by their own figures. This was said in an Oireachtas committee, on a joint committee on this green paper, who asked this question, and they admitted that 50% of people, by their estimation, will be put in tier 3. So the thing is that they also have said repeatedly, it's not like the English system, it's not going to be like the English system, despite the fact that the language being used is very, very similar to the English system. And they have also said that nobody will lose their payment. However, one of the stated aims of this green paper is to move those in tier 3, again, 50% of the people who are assessed, into the workforce and into full-time employment. And so they will no longer be in receipt of a disability payment. Everybody so far has spoke about the difficulties with this. We've spoken about dynamic disabilities, we've spoken about fluctuating capacity, we've spoken about the difficulty of an assessor. And I think people, this is something that I only came to later, one of the things that's really difficult for me to get my head around is the fact that that assessor will never meet you. That assessment will be based off reports that your GP will send in. So you'll have to go to disabled people will have to go to their GP and go and get these forms filled in and send them off to an assessor, who will then decide your level and what your capacity is, without ever having met you. Even though, let's be honest, they can't determine your capacity just based on a short 20-minute meeting anyway. But then you'll have to appeal. And I don't know if anybody's ever engaged in this whole appeal process to do with the intro or the Department of Social Protection. I'm going to speak now as a parent of a child, a disabled child, and a person who has supported other parents around this, and use the domiciliary carers allowance as an example. So the vast majority of people who apply for the domiciliary carers allowance get it rejected on the first go. In fact, in any parenting group where people are talking about this, people are just like, you're going to get rejected, you have to appeal. It's just, that's what we do. That's part of the process now. It's so endemic in the system that it's part of what we do. Yet 80% of those appeals are granted without having to do any extra things. And what this indicates is that we have a system, an adversarial system, that is set up to weed out people who don't appeal, it's a kind of built-in fail-safe. They know that about 20% of people won't appeal and therefore won't be able to get the domiciliary carers allowance. That will roll out across all of these payments, and that's built in. They factor that in as a kind of way of weaning people out, or weeding people out is what I meant to say, sorry. And I know that this has come up in consultations that we've done in the past with Disabled Women Ireland about different things. Also, another thing that has repeatedly come up in consultations when we've been asked to do consultations for the HSE and different consultations on different matters is medical trauma. There's an enormous amount of medical trauma within our disabled community. And there is no acknowledgement in this green paper of that and how difficult the process itself will be for an awful lot of people. So obviously, it's, sorry, I'm losing track of what I was about to say, going to say. There is something that I want to share, and I want to prefix this image with saying that the language used within it is extremely difficult. However, I think it's a really important piece to share because I think it speaks to where this green paper came from and the mentality of the people that devised this green paper and worked on this green paper. So I'm just going to screen share for a second, if I can find it. Oh, sorry, give me a moment.
While you're finding that, Gillian, I'm just going to read
it.
one.
Yep, go ahead.
One comment from YouTube, and it backs up what you were saying. But Shelley was saying that the disability allowance medical part is filled out by a doctor. Let's be honest, generally your GP, who isn't trained as a psychiatrist or psychologist,
no,
or any specialists.
No, and what if you have a disability that they don't believe is real, or very, very rare, like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? How many people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome are told it's really rare? We have no specialist in Ireland. So if you have a GP, that's the thing. If you have a GP who doesn't believe you or doesn't think things are as bad as you say they are, it's their word. Do you know what I mean? Like this, there's nothing about this that is okay. The whole process is just awful. I'm going to share, as I said, I'm going to share this, and I apologize in advance for the language that's being used, but I think it really speaks to where the ideas for these green papers came from. This is something from 1912. This is something that was published in 1912. And what I want to look at is that the levels that they have tiered people into are based on their capacity to work. So what they've determined as people's intellectual level, unfortunately, is based on their capacity to work. I'm going to stop sharing that because, to be honest, it's very upsetting. But nothing has changed. Well, sorry, something has changed. They now know that language isn't okay, but the mentality behind why they've done this and why they're splitting people into tiers has not changed. in any way, shape or form. The only thing that's changed is they now know that that's not very PC, and we probably shouldn't say that quiet part out loud. So yes, I do apologize for showing that. It's not a pleasant image, but I think it's really important because it speaks to just how disabled people are still being viewed by the state as a burden and an inconvenience. Yeah, so I'm going to finish up now. And I just wanted to say that I'm really glad to see so many people here today. I'm really glad that we're all saying the same thing, especially in light of the fact that the government boldly announced to the first consultation that disabled people and disabled persons organisations were in agreement or approved of this green paper. I just want to say on behalf of Disabled Women in Ireland, we absolutely and categorically do not approve of this green paper. And when they scrap this green paper, we want them to actually uphold the UN guidance. The UN CRPD committee produced a guidance document on how to consult with DPOs, stressing the actual legislative obligation to prioritise the voice of DPOs, of disabled people and their representative organisations, which is what DPOs and disabled persons organisations are. And in that guidance, it outlined how you do a consultation, how you properly do a consultation. And part of that was disabled people being involved in the planning and design of any document or legislation or anything else to do with disabled people. So that's the last thing. We want the green paper to actually uphold the UN CRPD if and when a new one is devised, because this one does not in any way, shape or form. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gillian, and thank you, Disabled Women Ireland even, for all the incredible work that you do for the disabled community here in Ireland. And let's be honest, it has an effect abroad as well. And thank you all, everybody who spoke tonight. We had such amazing speakers. Thank you, everybody who is watching over on YouTube. And I know I keep saying it, but I wanted to share a few things with you because we were talking about how this is going to affect us. And I think we also have to take a moment to recognize how much it is already affecting us. I do not know a single disabled person in my life who has not either cried or gotten angry at these proposals over the last 2 months. This has caused a huge amount of strain on an already vulnerable community. In Neuro Pride, we done a survey amongst our members, and it's only a snapshot of the disabled community in Ireland. I am totally aware of that. But within our community anyway, 90% of the people who done the survey said that it's had an extremely negative impact on their mental health since hearing the news. And what was even more upsetting for us with that is 50% of the respondents didn't actually understand the paper, which is fair. It's a 51-page document, apparently in plain English, that every single person I know I've talked to is shocked when they hear it's in plain English. And then in our community, 80% do not agree with this paper, and 18% of people said they don't know enough about the paper to say if they agree or don't agree. That's how it's currently affecting us. It's currently causing distress. It's currently causing anxiety. People are trying to understand this huge document. People are trying to write submissions. DPOs, disabled persons organizations, are working ourselves to the bone, trying to be there for our communities, be a shoulder to cry on, while also having to process our own emotions, while also trying to understand this document and be able to give the information to our members so they can try to understand it. We call on the government for so much. We called for an extension, they gave us an extension. We called for online consultations, they gave us online consultations. Now we're calling on them to scrap it. Well, to be honest, we were already calling on that, but like, they need to. This is causing too much heartache, too much, and there's too much that is left unknown in it. We don't understand half of it, and even they don't. We've asked them the questions during consultations, we all have, and they don't have answers for us. Or one of them has one answer and another has another answer. That's not good enough. I understand this is a proposal and it's a straw man and all that nonsense that they say. That's not good enough. You cannot give us a proposal that asks us more questions than we have answers. You cannot give a vulnerable group of people who are already underserviced, in poverty, in harm's way by the policies that are already in place, and tell them, sure, we'll figure it out as it goes along. That's not how this works. If you are going to propose something, you have to have us involved from the very beginning, and you have to make sure the creases are ironed out. We went into the DPO consultation. Before going into DPO consultation, we wrote out a list of questions to ask. I did not get one of them questions answered, and by the time I left it, I had more questions. I went to the Dublin consultation with the same questions, did not get one answered. Came out with even more questions. That's not good enough. We have uncertainty, we have expectations that is causing distress, and it leaves us all in an awful position, and we are expected to just get on with it. Yeah, sorry. But yes, so in the interest of getting on with it, we're calling on everybody we're calling on the government to scrap the green paper, as you are all aware. The petition, 2,500 signatures, amazing. We can do better. I know we can do better. Keep sharing the petition, sign the petition, make sure to spread the news with the hashtag scrap the green paper, show up on Thursday, wear red, wear masks, chant, join in, or don't, stand there, whatever makes you comfortable. And call on organizations to join us. We have a lovely list of supporting organizations that support the call to scrap the green paper, but we're always open to hearing more. So if you're involved in some organization, feel free to let them know about us and let them know that you think they should join our call. But anyway, we had amazing speakers tonight, and as such, while we are finished with all our lovely prepared speeches, I know I'm going off script, terrible thing, but I have warned them, don't worry, it's just the audience that's getting the shock factor now. I'm going to open up the floor again to all our amazing speakers. If anybody does want to come in and say anything, you are all free to put your cameras back on now. And I know Daniella wants to speak first. So I'm going to throw it back over to Danielle. Oh, also, beacons. Scrap the green paper on beacons. Thank you, Gillian, for reminding me. You'll get all the information there.
Yeah, that's really well said, Keir. Like, it's just the amount. Well, I went to the Dublin Castle consultation, and the amount of stuff where they were not prepared to have actual disabled people there was just ridiculous. Like, it was inaccessible. You could only ask questions via this one app that they had prepared, and then the audience had to be like, hey, not all of us can use this app because not everybody is able to. We have questions from the audience, and then also had to remind them to use microphones. And then for the roundtable consultation workshops, like there was no microphones, so people were just lip reading and stuff like that, and trying to understand what people had to say. And like the whole I ended up speaking to one of the people who wrote it afterwards and wrote the green paper, and she said she was really surprised by the fact that disabled people were so upset about this and thought it was like the UK one. Like they seemed to be really clueless about the idea that disabled people would even respond to this and show up. And it's absolutely just, it's unacceptable how they've treated us in this process. And we have had to like figure out how to organize against this as a community, and that's been really hard for us. I didn't understand most of what was in the green paper for a while, and it was really hard to get my head around it. And I have an idea now, but I still have, like Keir said, so many questions that just aren't answered, and we're not getting the answers because they're just not interested in providing them, because they know they've been caught by the community and they don't want to answer the questions. And yeah, I just want to say that thank you to everybody here who's been organizing against this, because like this is not easy, and we're all pushing through flares and pushing through exhaustion and pushing through trauma to get this done. And I know like it's not easy for us to organize like this, but just this is really, really hard work, and we shouldn't have to do it. And the government is awful for making us. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Kayleigh, did you have your hand raised there? You're on mute, Kayleigh.
Am I back?
Yeah.
I find it really disappointing that they want us to be involved in society, but they don't want to give us the support to be able to be active members in society. Because I find myself like I have to fight for everything I have, and sometimes you just get so tired of the fight, but you have to keep going to make it better for the next generation coming up, I feel.
Gillian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks, Kayleigh. Thanks so much for pointing that out, pointing out how much we already have to fight. And like Róisín said, there seems to be no acknowledgement of the fact that some of us are parents of disabled children and are already fighting those fights. Like everything in our life is such a struggle and such a fight. And well, like Daniella was saying and Keir were talking about, they were both talking about the questions that we don't have answers to. And I meant to bring it up when I was talking, but not gonna lie, I completely ADHD'd it and forgot what I was saying. One of the questions that we have, and one of the questions that has not been addressed or looked at, and one of the questions is, what happens if people can't engage with intro? What happens if people aren't able to do the work that intro decides, or the course that they decide they're meant to do? And people are like, I physically can't do this, I emotionally, I psychologically can't do this. Are they going to be penalised? Are they going to have their payments take off, and are they going to be penalised? And we have asked and just basically been ignored. And I know that's a huge concern that people in the community have. So I just wanted to point out that this is something that we're asking and nobody will answer us. So, and yeah, like Daniella says, there seems to be an enormous amount of shock and disbelief that we aren't falling over ourselves to congratulate them and to thank them so much for how kind they're being and how nice it feels to be put into 3 different tiers, because like humans just love that. Humans love being tiered and being made. It's not dehumanizing. It's not insulting. It's not a horrible way to view your fellow human beings at all. Oh, sorry, that is heavy sarcasm. I know I'm autistic and I'm not supposed to know what sarcasm is, but that's heavy sarcasm, and just in case anybody didn't get that. Yeah, I just think the understanding of how this makes people feel has just been so missing and so lacking. And I'd love to say to them, like, this is the point. This is the point, and I think I said it in the podcast that myself and Mariam did around this. People seem to think it's disabled people and non-disabled people. It's disabled or enabled, and nothing in this document is enabling people. There's no autonomy given. There's no sense of, like, we are not saying, and this is what we said the other day, myself and Mariam, we're not saying that there aren't disabled people who need supports, who want to work and aren't able because the supports aren't there, because they don't have PARs, they don't have accessibility equipment that they need. Absolutely, that is vital, and absolutely that is a very big need in our community. However, that's if the person themselves decides, not some randomer sitting in an office somewhere looking at a report from a GP who may or may not understand the person's lived experience, deciding, oh no, well, I'm going to just tick this. They're capable of work, and now if they don't, maybe we'll penalise them if they don't. It's just, all of it's a bit annoying. Sorry, a little bit of a rant there.
You're grand. I will bring it over to Margaret and Róisín, but before I do that, for those of you on YouTube, they're like, who's this random person that's also after joining? Mariam has been here all along. They just weren't speaking, but Mariam is one of the co-founders of Disability Power Ireland, and their representative within the Scrap, the Green Paper Coalition. Margaret.
I think everyone did a wonderful job tonight. I mean, I think you all, what they say in England, spoke truth to power. We're speaking the truth. We're getting the power back, and we're going to have the power in the future. But I am so shocked by this green paper. And, you know, I'm 71. I don't need to be involved here. But the dehumanization of the tiering, that staircase that you showed, Gillian, is absolutely horrendous. We've gone backwards in our attitude toward disabled people. In our ablism has got worse, and people don't even understand what the word means. And what I'm shocked about is that the Irish government haven't taken lessons from the UK and have not believed that hundreds, if not thousands, of disabled people died or committed suicide after similar legislation. We cannot let that happen here. People died because they couldn't get enough money to buy food, and they had malnutrition and they died. They committed suicide because they couldn't cope with the assessment and the demands and the sanctions. And I got involved at age 71. You know, I have a neuromuscular disease. I can't breathe sometimes very well because, hey, I've been here a long time doing this work, and we're going into hell rather than into heaven right now. You can't even get a wheelchair. You can't get parts for wheelchairs. You can't get a taxi for love nor money. Oh, we haven't got accessible taxis. You can't get a social worker. Oh, we're overworked and we're busy. And they stick up an ad on a train station saying that, you know, disabled people, you know, I just say, but you don't know even the meaning of the name ableist. You don't. And I'm so angry. I'm so angry that in my retirement, I come back and see, I'm really upset about everything. You know, I'm so upset that Ireland is such a poor country to live in. It really upsets me that we can't care about each other, and we can't care about, the government can't care about disabled people. This legislation tells us completely, fully and entirely this government does not give a shit about disabled people. It doesn't. And that upsets me. But I'm glad to be part of a group of people who are younger and have the fight in them. And everyone spoke so well tonight. We'll do it on Thursday. We're going to get our power. We're going to speak truth to power, and we're going to claim our power. So I'm off now because you interrupted my pizza. I'm going to finish it.
You go enjoy your pizza. Thank you, as always. Thank you, everybody, for being so open and honest about what this means. It is a very upsetting topic. It is very anger-inducing, and the vulnerability that the community has shown shouldn't have had to happen. But once again, that's what gets noticed, unfortunately. But Róisín.
Thank you. Everybody spoke so amazingly tonight. Congratulations on everyone. And I think we really do need to stick together. And I know, maybe in terms of the arts, the way the Arts Council reacted or whatever, and the way ADI don't often see like artists in a more, because I work in Arts and Disability Ireland, and yes, we don't have that many people of colour or applying to the awards. But so that is a side that like isn't seen. But in general, like ADI are very we all want to scrap the green paper, and I think as a community, all of the organizations who want to do all of that need to kind of come together, work together. And I think we are seeing that anyway, so it's great. But yeah, there's a few different things I wanted to say. Like I think the government, first of all, doesn't realize that disabled people can be self-employed and be artists and be self-employed, because there's no mechanism really for being self-employed and being on disability allowance. When you ring up a disability allowance, they don't really give you very much information. And when with the artist basic income, which was introduced, I was on the consultation, and so were other people from Arts and Disability Ireland and a few other people from different groups with disabilities, and we explained our concerns, and they didn't really, basically, if you have a disability and you're on disability allowance and you apply for this basic income, your disability allowance is reduced. And people have been, I know some people were there at the talk the other day, but people have had social welfare like coming to their house and as well. And it's like they don't realize that we could be artists or we could be self-employed or whatever. And they also do not want to accommodate that. And they don't want to realize either that we are, I suppose, like can have relationships and can be married and can have sex lives and can have children and can have families or can have parents that we need to look after ourselves, and that we look after people. Like one of the jobs I used to have was as a nanny. I bet you they can't imagine a disabled person who's a nanny, so it's like, of course we can care about people. Yeah, it's just kind of not great. And yeah, so I just wanted to add those points in. And there just seems in general to be like a lack of clarity around all these different things. They don't want to give us information. Like Gillian was saying, how you've asked about what will happen in certain circumstances once this comes in, and they're just like they haven't really thought about it, and they haven't really thought about everything, and they don't want to. And I think there needs to be a reform of social welfare in general, so that everything is clearer, so that even outside of disability, all the different social welfare payments, there's a kind of obscurity to how you can get help. So I think, as well as calling for all this reform, there should really just be a general reform of social welfare, social protection, and how they kind of don't see anybody on it as like that we're a number or a letter or whatever. We're not people. Yeah. So thank you so much for everyone listening in, and thank you to everyone here. It's been great. And I might have to leave before the end of the conversation, but yeah.
Your friend, thank you. And yes, you're right. I think our common sort of themes tonight was our lack of information about this and the upheaval it's causing amongst our community, but also they don't seem to take into consideration of us outside of this character image of what a disabled person looks like. Even when we're thinking about, one of the things that they kept talking about was retraining people for more suitable jobs. 80% of autistics are already overly qualified compared to what their job, this type of way. Many of us have qualifications. Many disabled people, shockingly enough, go to college and train and do X, Y, and Z, but they don't seem to have this idea outside of a very character image of us. Sorry, Gillian. You're on mute.
Yep. I was getting there. I was actually on another tab looking up something, as you know what I want to do. I just wanted to point out one of the things that I kind of hit on when I was talking, but one of the things that's so frustrating is the Disability Matters Committee, as I mentioned, looking at the UNCRPD, blah, blah, blah. We've spent years talking to them. We've all, Disability Power have presented to them, Neuro have presented to them, Disabled Women Ireland have presented to them, along with a lot of other DPOs. A lot of other disabled people have put so much time and effort, stayed up nights, writing submissions. And it didn't occur to the people who wrote this green paper to even talk to the Disability Matters Committee, to even say, here, lads, will you have a look at this first and see if it's UNCRPD compliant? And like, why are we, let's be honest, we're all volunteers, none of us are get paid. Why are we spending so much energy and time becoming experts in policy, becoming experts in the UNCRPD and stuff like that? And the people who are meant to be writing these documents didn't even think that they should even consider it. Like, nothing in this document references the UNCRPD. I think they briefly said at the start that, oh, we have obligations under it, and then conveniently just forget all about it. And it's so frustrating. And I think that's one of the things that we need to like acknowledge is behind a lot of the anger as well. It's like, what are we actually at? Why are we doing these things if you won't listen to us? You keep on acknowledging the fact that you're meant to listen to us, and it's really important that you listen to us. And then you present us with something and give us a couple of months to look through it, and then kind of, it's just, yeah. So that, I think that's part of the anger as well. And the part of the anger is the not even considering that we would have any views on this, that we would be upset by it, that we are well aware of the implications. And I don't know if anybody's written to them and got the very patronizing, very dismissive email back of, oh, this is just a proposal. Please don't talk down to us. Please don't talk down to us when we know that this paper was meant to be introduced last summer or last September, around that time. And they got a year extension to work on it further. You don't put an extra year's work into something that you don't want to see go through to white paper. You just don't. Please don't insult our intelligence by telling us that, it's just a proposal. If it was just a proposal, why put all this effort into it? Why spend 1.5 million telling us how disabled rights are human rights? Why this big push if you didn't plan on anything? So please don't be dismissive of our concerns and of our upset and of our anger at this, because it's not just a proposal. This is something that the government really, really want to. It ties into their policy. It ties into that, welfare cheats us all nonsense. So it is very insulting to be replied to with a very dismissive and patronizing email. And I really hope that this is the start of people going, do you know what? Enough is enough. enough is enough. We've had enough. Most of us are very, very tired, very burnt out, and just wanted to have a nice Christmas, not spend our time on the streets, not spend our every evening that we're meant to be watching Christmas movies with our kids. Instead, writing proposals and, you know, posts on social media and all the work that has gone in, the amount of work that people have had to do. And it would just be nice if for once we didn't have to fight just to be seen as equal to everybody else. Yeah, there you go. That's I'll just pop down off my soapbox at the soapbox. So yeah.
Thank you, Gillian. Daniella. Daniella, you're on mute.
Yeah, I got it eventually. Yeah, like one of the things that they were saying privately at the Dublin consultation was that like they look, you know, they can hear all this stuff, that all these stories giving context to why people are against this proposal, but it's not relevant to them and what they're doing. So they kind of compartmentalize that and put it away and say, well, it's not relevant. That's not relevant to what we're doing here. So they don't have to take that context into consideration. They only have to think about the numbers and the tiers and the system, and they don't have to think about the lives of disabled people that you're putting into the tiers. Like they're very clear about the fact that they compartmentalize anything that's not specifically about the green paper. And so like when we're like being like, please listen to us and take us as full human beings, they're like, no, they're just, that's it. And we aren't human in this process to them a lot of the time. And like there might be moments when we're human to them, but like they put that away when they're looking at the policy. And yeah, this whole thing is, it doesn't feel good. Here.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you all. On that note of we're being tired and burned out and all that jazz, I think it is time for our amazing activists to rest, eat. I'm sure at least one of us has forgotten to take our meds or drink water or eat. So, but thank you all for watching on YouTube. Thank you to those of you that are going to show up on Thursday. And even if you can't show up on Thursday, post something on social media. Post a picture wearing red, post one of your stories, even just share one of our posts. Get the conversation going, no matter where you are, no matter your abilities. You are capable of helping with this. So please do what you can to support us, and let's hope this green paper gets scrapped. Thank you all.
Thanks a million.
If it wanted to YouTube, but apparently it doesn't. So